Alright everybody, appreciate y'all coming back to the channel. So a little update. You remember the little kids 90s, you know, we were going to hold on those till Christmas. No, didn't do that. Didn't do that at all. Went ahead and posted them and sold them, and we did really good on that. I'll put some pictures up for anybody that's new to the channel. We buy and fix up three-wheelers and four-wheelers and mini bikes, and we keep the favorite ones and we sell the rest of them. And so the ones that we sell kind of pay for the upgrades for the ones we keep. So welcome if you're new. So the little Scrambler 90, we did really good on that. I think we paid $500 for that machine, put about $100 in it, cleaned it up, sold it for $1,200. So it's pretty good margin on that one. You really can't go wrong with that. The little TRX 90 Honda ended up having to put a OE carburetor. That's really the only way to go on those air filters. So we had to put a little more money into that one, and we paid a little bit more for it. So we ended up with about $850 in that machine and sold it for $1,500. And not quite double our money on that one. The little Z50, we had all three of those kids' machines at one time. It's kind of funny how things kind of come in spurts like that. The little Z50, we picked up that for $250. I think we had less than $500 in it, and we sold it for $1,200. So we did real good on all three of those. But what that means is I had a big hole in my shop and I didn't have anything. And so I was, you know, doing what I do and searching around on the old marketplace there, and I found the cheapest Honda Rancher on Marketplace. And I'm going to show you some pictures of it. I think that's a good way to kind of validate what I'm telling you. So the ad had been up, hadn't been up for that long, a couple of days I think, and the seller said it had a transmission problem. And I gotta tell you, I am not versed on these motors that are turned sideways. It's not something that I work on every day, so it's a little new. So I went and looked at it, and he wanted $800 for it, and it needs some tires. It's got the worst tires I have ever seen. They are cupped, dry rotted, and flat. I mean, but they still hold air. I mean, it's incredible that they hold air. How do you know which machine to buy? It's a roll of the dice. You don't know. You never know. And everything that the seller tells you, you need to take it with a grain of salt. And the same goes for this machine here. The seller told me it had a busted transmission. And I got to tell you, of all the Hondas I've ever worked on, a bad transmission is not something that I run across a lot. You just don't see that problem come up. Honda may have its issues, but a bad transmission is not one. And so when somebody tells you it's got a bad transmission, there's a strong possibility that it may be something else. It could be a rear differential, it could be a drive shaft, it could be a clutch, it could be the transmission, it could be you know, strip splines on some. I mean, you never know. But the ad said that it ran, and I thought, well, it was worth going to look at. So let's really take it in and kind of look, and let me share with you what I saw and why I bought it. So first things first, it's what you don't see is why I bought it. There's no snorkel coming out of this thing. Guys, I just have a firm rule. I do not buy anything with a snorkel, which is hard to do because so many people think that the snorkel's cool, and it just ruins a lot of machines for me. So anyways, this is a two-wheel drive. This is a 350 Rancher, not a 250 and not the 450. It's the 350 Rancher. The plastics are in good shape. This rack is bent. It's been hit, and if you look really close, it's been hit down here kind of low. It's been pushed back, a little aerodynamic thing going on here. But what that did is that caused the plastic to buckle. So it did split here, and that does suck because overall the plastic is in really good shape. I mean, really good shape. Now, a couple things. We're going to address each individual thing, but let's look at it. Look at our plastics. Look how our plastic is not faded out at the top. Most of these are white across the top here because the sun has just beat down on this dash pad so much. Look at our grips. We talk about grip wear. Look, now these are pretty worn, but they're not slick. There's still quite a few, you know, little treads left on them. All of our controls are in place. All of our levers are in place. They're not broken off. Everything is where it should be. Very important. These machines get beat on over the years depending on who owns them. Those are not the machines you want to buy. You want to buy the machine that was owned by an adult, that treated it like an adult, and though it may have sat outside for a while, it wasn't swamped, with water over the handlebars. So this one did have a little accident, which is, real common. Accidents happen. Could we put a come along or something and bring this back out? We could. That would bring this rack forward. You can see where these mounts are about to come off of here, and then that would relieve the tension on the plastic here. Is it worth doing that? Sometimes no. We find yourself opening a big can of worms. If I start bending this front bumper out and all of a sudden this weld breaks here, yeah, I can weld it back, but I promise you're never going to get it back in there. This is all under tension. It's all kind of in a bind, if you will. And sometimes it's just best to leave it alone. The second reason I bought this machine are factory original headlights. 99% of these machines take an impact to the front, they bust out the headlights, and they have no headlights. Both headlights. There we go. So that's two quick things you look for on a machine that you're going to buy either for yourself or to flip. Remember, a lot of these things apply to whether you're keeping it long term or not. I'm not seeing a lot of add-ons. Someone probably put some aftermarket lights. These holes aren't original. So at one time it probably had some KC lights or LED pod lights or something right here, Not a deal breaker, but you don't see a bunch of hoses and wires and a snorkel and a radio boom system. You don't see any of that stuff. There's no holes in the plastic. If you add something to a machine, be able to take it off the machine to where it doesn't hurt the machine. If you want to put the speakers up there, that's fine. Run your wires through this hole. Don't go drilling new holes, okay? It's going to make your machine worth a lot more. That's all I'm trying to tell you. Tires. Now, I am a tire guy. I just love tires. I think the right tire on a machine, a car, tractor, whatever, makes the tire the right width, the right size. I'm not so much a brand guy, but the right look of the right tire. Why are these tires so, I think, why are they important to pay attention to? They're not lifted. They're not jacked up. They're not big mud vampire assassinator tires. You know what I'm saying? These are the original Goodyears. All four are the original Good. This machine's 21 years old. These are the original tires that came on this machine. Now, yes, they're bad, but that tells us a lot about the machine. That tells us that how many hours are on the machine, more than likely. It tells us that it wasn't necessarily mud bogged because it doesn't have the vampire tires on it. It was probably used around someone's property for a four-wheeler like it was meant to be. All right, it's had some share of ups and downs. It's had a few bumps and bruises. Somebody's crashed it, and these fenders get ripped off all the time. 90% of them is missing one of these rear fenders, generally on the left side. This one, things happen. These footwells, they get busted off. They get brittle. You can see how brittle they get just with age and sitting outside. But they're here for the most part. All the plastics are here. So it's always a good thing to pay attention to that the plastics, you can buy fender flares or you can run it without them. It's not the end of the world. All of our controls are in place. Everything worked as it should, that we could tell. Remember, the machine wasn't running when you first look at it, of course. Tank on these is pretty straightforward. It looked good on the inside. Motor looks good. You don't see, what else do you not see? You don't see any RTV. You don't see any massive leaks. It does have a little leak back here in the back. It's a little damp. Again, it's 21 years old. It's going to have a little bit. On the other side here, on our left side of the machine, we've got a little leak down by the gear selector there. There's a little seal back there. This is a foot shift. This is a standard foot shift. This is not the electronic shift. Another reason why, when the man told me he had transmission problems, the ad clearly says that, needs transmission rebuild. It's manual. It's the most bulletproof transmission Honda's really ever come out with. If you've grenaded that, you have really done something. So again, not that I'm not believing the seller, but I'm taking it with a grain of salt. Maybe he could have misdiagnosed it. There is that chance. So talking to the seller, he said he's had it about 10 years and his family's used it on his property. His kids rode it and it finally got to the point where it just wouldn't pull. It would run, but it wouldn't pull. And so, you know, I'm still thinking about that all in the back of my mind. Other things to look at. Look at the seat. This is an original seat. It still has the warning sticker on the back of it. What does that seat tell you about this machine? That this machine has not been sitting outside its entire life. It may have sat outside the last year or so, but for the most part, the plastics are not faded. The seat is not tore. Look, it's soft. Feels good when you sit on it. It's not torn. The dog didn't tear it up. It hadn't, you know, got run over by the lawnmower. That is an original seat, again, telling the story of this machine. Now, there are some things wrong with it, of course. Again, there's things wrong with anything that's 21 years old. We've got a busted tail light housing here, but the trunk is in place. Everything is there. It's just a big hole in the back here. But the trunk is in place. We do need a lens there. So we're just looking at the overall condition of this machine. Having a transmission problem is kind of a catastrophic thing. It's a machine killer, and I think that's why it's set for sale like it did for a couple days. At this price point, it should have been scooped up really quick. But the seller saying it had an automatic or had a transmission problem kind of sealed the fate. Most guys, even mechanic guys, probably said, nah, it's just not worth it. You know, there are some really good parts there, but I maybe, you know, it's just not worth it. So let me reposition here and we'll kind of go over what I went through and how I fixed this machine. All right, so now you know kind of what I saw in the ad when I talked to the seller, and when I saw what I saw in person, you know, just kind of taking it all in, looking at all the different options. Was it something that I could fix? Was it a good purchase price? Was it something that's resellable? I mean, all of those things are important to me, and you can get upside down flipping things, you know, especially things that have to run to sell them. And you can sell things not running, but you'll never make the profit that you would off of something that does run. And so it came in on 4 flat tires. It just, you know, it was just beat up. So I'm at the seller's house and we get it to fire up. Now the choke cable is rock solid rusted. So the machine really didn't want to run until it was warmed up, but that's understandable. And so he's holding the throttle, and remember, it's manual transmission. It's auto clutch, but it's a manual trans. And so we reach down and we put it up and we put it in the first, and he's giving it gas, and it's not pulling at all. But when he first put it in gear, the machine lurched a little bit, and that's a good sign, but it wouldn't pull. We put it in the second, you heard it click, click. I mean, just a definite shift, wouldn't pull. Okay. Went down into neutral, went into reverse. The machine lurched again, and you know, in reverse, but it wouldn't pull. No noises, no clunks, no bangs, no grinding noises, no nothing like that. Just motor running, no smoke, no pull. So I took a chance. I made an offer. Well, first I asked him what the least he'd take for it, and he said $6,000. And that was probably a good purchase price. I think that it would sell for that. I made an offer of $5,000, and he took it. And the reason he took it is because he didn't want to deal with other people coming to his house, looking at it. He didn't want to meet anybody else. You know, he just wanted to get it gone. I was at the right place at the right time with the right offer. I paid $500 for this machine. Now that's pretty good. Now, if I hadn't been able to fix it, I'd have a boat anchor. I could get $5,000 for it. I could probably get $6,000 for it. It's not worth my time at that point. And the first thing I want to do is I want to eliminate the rear axle. Honda did have some weak rear ends in their 250 class Ranchers. I don't know that translates over to the 350s. I'm not sure. But it's something to be to be, you know, concerned about. If you're dealing with a 300, especially the 300s of the late 80s, those rear ends, the ring and pinion was a bad design. So why the seller had the engine running, we had it in gear, and we're just listening, and it's not making any noise. I put my hand on the rear differential. Now, I've experienced a strip diff before on another machine, it wasn't mine, and you could feel it. I mean, that rear diff is just grinding and it's clunking and the machine's kicking and bumping. That this machine was not doing this. This machine was dead still, not pulling. Like the drive shaft wasn't even in it. I mean, that's how still it was. But when we put it in gear, it made that lurch. So that told me the drive shaft and probably the rear axle was not the issue. I put my hand on the rear diff when it's running. It was not getting any power. On these particular machines, they are shaft driven, and right here you have a nice flexible boot. And so what I did is, while it was running, very carefully, I reached in here, and you can actually touch the drive shaft if you push in a little bit. It was not turning at all, even though the machine was running and in gear. So that told me that the problem was probably not from the drive shaft back. Okay, so we kind of eliminated that. Doesn't mean that it didn't have a bad diff, but the reason it wasn't initially moving, it had nothing to do with the rear axle. The lurch told me that the rear differential was probably okay, at least enough to make it lurch. So, because it's manual, we don't have that electronic solenoid shifty doodad thing in here that fails all the time. We don't have to worry about that. This is gear on gear, clutch on clutch, a lot like the three-wheelers that I'm more familiar with. So I came out, I put it up here on a rack, I checked the oil. The oil check is on this side, the fill is on the other side. I don't know why. But anyways, it was about a half a quart low, 3/4 of a quart low on oil. So I topped the oil off thinking, well, maybe not. Maybe somebody's put the wrong oil in it and the clutches are slipping. I'm thinking clutches. It's the easiest, cheapest, best case scenario to put a clutch in it. Well, I put the oil in it and that didn't help it at all. And so I decided that the next thing to do would be to adjust the clutch. Let's see if the clutch is adjusted and how far out it is or in or something like that. And so I came out and I grabbed my little screwdriver here. And right in the front of this engine, I'll say it's the front, it's facing the front of the machine. Right here, there's a clutch adjustment. It's a flathead screw with a jam nut on it. Because what happened is the clutch pack loosened up and wasn't transferring any power to the rear axle. And that's all that was wrong with this machine. It already ran, it just didn't drive. Now it drives. Choke cable, I will say. It wants to be choked right now because it's cold out here this morning and I can't choke it. Last night I let it run out here 15 minutes just on the stand. Never missed a beat. There you go. So it runs. Now it's driving, it's pulling under its own weight. It pulled me, I mean, it pulls great. The clutches had no resistance, no tension on them at all. Incredible. So now you start thinking, well, what else works? Well, remember one of the reasons we bought this is because it had both the headlights in it. To my surprise, they both still work. I mean, that's huge. 80% of these on marketplace right now don't have any headlights in them. So then I walk around back here and I thought, well, what's the chances? Oh, look at that. So now it just needs a lens on the back. Look at that. All of our lights on our dash work. Our neutral light works. You saw that a minute ago probably. Reverse light works. There's our neutral light. There's our reverse light. We have reverse. No smoke, no funny noises. All right, brakes. Brakes are always important. So the front brakes do work. I used the front brakes coming off the truck last night. I'm glad they did work because this is kind of a heavy machine. I mean, this is a man's adult's machine. You know, it's the 350. Rear brakes, not so much. But that is such a win. So what do? Oh my goodness! Wow, we could do a lot. We could hate to sell it. And there's the problem. That's the addiction right there. That's the addiction. You know, I've got a little space over there in the corner. I could keep it. But that's where all this kind of falls apart, really, is you find something like this and it's a great machine. It runs and drives, it stops. You probably could use some brakes, use a clutch cable, you know, use a rear tail light. It could use some things. But you hate to get rid of something that you got such a good deal on. But there again, that's when you make the most profit. And so you always have to balance that. You know, what should I keep? What should I sell? Do I need a four-wheeler? No, I don't. Do I want one? Well, everybody wants a four-wheeler. I mean, that's just what we do. But anyways, so we got $500 running, driving, stopping. It's got a battery in it. The battery alone, $75. I mean, you couldn't go wrong with that price point, that buy-in. So what I'm going to do next for me is we're going to clean it up. I'm going to go ahead and wash it. It's got a lot of mud underneath it, but there's no rust on this machine. I didn't talk about that earlier. I really rolled the dice on that. You know, 21-year-old machine covered in mud. It probably got some rust on it. It really doesn't. It's little surface rust here or there, but I mean nothing to even talk about. It's not even worth touching up the paint underneath it. This thing was cared for a while. It might not have been this last couple of years due to its transmission problem, but the bulk of its life, I would probably guess that it was taken well care of. Original tires. Come on, y'all. That's huge on a 21-year-old machine. Let's go for a ride. Let me show you how it's working, and then we're going to wash it up, clean it up, and then we're going to put it back on Marketplace.
has come, it's cold and losing my control. The light is gone, alone the darkness fill my soul. I wish that you could save me from my isolation. It's way too complicated. Let's stop this conversation. Let's stop this conversation. We got no relation. It's crazy. You could save me from my isolation. It's too complicated. Let's stop this conversation.
All right, well now we got it all washed back up. Now this is generally where I kind of finish the video and ride off into the sunset, so they say. But I kind of thought maybe this would be interesting to some of y'all that do buy and sell things, or maybe want to get into buying and selling things. And so cleaning is huge. I mean, first impressions, it's like seeing a pretty girl. You know, that first look, that first time you see it on that ad, it will set the tone for whether or not that person's even going to call you or message you or even is interested in them, whatever it is you're selling. And I don't care if you're selling anything. Wash it, clean it up, you know, make it look as good as you can. Now, I want to preface this because they're gonna get their feelings hurt. I'm not talking about spray painting and covering up damage. I'm not talking about hiding anything from the potential buyer. I'm talking about taking a product and putting it in the best light possible. Take good photos. Don't take pictures at night with a flashlight. Don't take pictures where the sun's blaring the camera out and they can't see anything. I saw a car for sale the other day. I kid you not, the person was sitting at the kitchen table because I could see like Cheerios box through the window, over the bushes, between the trees, there was a car for sale. Now, if you're so lazy you can't walk outside and take a picture, you know, face to face with the item, then don't even bother. Did they sell it? I don't know, but I didn't buy it. My point is, when you're selling something, you need to paint the prettiest picture you can without camouflaging damage, without telling a lie. And that's certainly not what we want to do here. This machine's going to go on Marketplace probably this Thursday or Friday. Let me tell you, Thursdays or Fridays is the best days to post something for sale. People's getting paid, they're looking for something fun to do on the weekend, and you have something that's fun. And so if you're going to post something for sale, post it on a Thursday and Friday. Your hits, your callbacks, your messages will go up quite a bit, just because people are in the buying mode, if you will. They've worked all week, they've got a little money in their pocket, and they're looking for something to do. So that being said, I'm not going to spray paint this. I'm not going to camouflage any of the imperfections of it, but I am going to clean it. And I will use a product called SC1. Now, I really don't like it, but I don't have anything else right now. Personally, I like Simple Green. I think Simple Green does a great job of cleaning. It leaves a nice little shine on the plastic. The SC1, I bought it, I tried it. I'm going to use it because I've already paid for it. But if I was recommending anything, I really do like Simple Green. One of the things you didn't see me pressure wash is the seat. And if you've got a really good pressure washer, you can literally just cut a hole right through it and ruin your seat. So I always wash seats by hand. I don't pressure wash them. I also try to stay away from the electronics. The electronics on this machine were just coated in mud, and the only way to really get that off is to wash them. And so what I did was I got them wet, and then I kind of went over in another area and pressure washed that. And then while they were soaking, then came back and hit them with a little bit more pressure. And so that's how I tackle electronics. I try not to squirt them directly with the pressure washer. Speaking of pressure washers, that's a Harbor Freight pressure washer. I've had it 3 years. I love it. And the engine on it is the little horizontal shaft, 212. We've used them in other videos here for our mini bikes and go-karts. Amazing engine. Why? It's a Honda clone. So check it out. I let it sit in the sun and dry just naturally. I didn't towel it off or anything. It's actually kind of warm. Still got a little bit of water on it, as you can tell. But, you know, it's clean now. Now you can really get a good idea of what we are dealing with, what we're looking at. I picked these up at the Harbor Freight also, and they are just push pins. Like $12 for this whole case. And I know it's $12, but something like this can go in here and see these holes where somebody's had this dash apart. They put that in there, they lock it in. If I can get my hand to operate, that's a tight fit. Little Christmas trees, look at that. Now, doesn't that look better? Now, definitely worth the $12 for the kit. You're dealing with Hondas, these little Christmas trees, or the Honda clip. There's some in there too. I just knew these would fit in here pretty well. Pretty sure they would. There you go. And now those panels are not going to rattle. They're not going to be loose. When I was kind of examining it, there's another one right here. So we're going to try to find us a clip that'll hold that in there a little bit better, just so it doesn't rattle. Again, we're not trying to hide anything, but we certainly want to fix what we can without blowing the budget. And that's all part of it. I stay awake at night thinking of the best way to maximize my position. And it's like any business model. You have to control cost, and then you have to control what you sell things for, and you have to maximize everything you do. And so when you are buying something and knowing you're going to sell it, you got to know what it's going to sell for before you ever buy it. That's going to give you your margin. That's going to give you your window. Now, this is a 350, not the 250, so they do pull a little bit more money. But it's two-wheel drive. It's not four-wheel drive, so they bring a little less money than the four-wheel drive ones. Quickly go on your phone, Google or look on Marketplace what that exact machine will sell for. And so you find this with the ES transmission, you find it with the foot shift transmission. You will find this machine for sale anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800 on the low end, all the way up to $2,500 to $3,000 for a really nice one. This is not really nice, but it's running and driving and it fires right up. So does it need tires? Yep, it does. So let's think about this. I'll put some numbers on the screen here, but this is what's going on up here. I'd like to get $1,800 for this machine. So how do I get that? Well, if I put tires on it, they're going to cost me probably $300. I've already looked them up. A nice set of tires that costs about $300. I have a tire machine. We could put that on there, but to get $1,800 in my pocket, then that means I need to cover those $300 worth of tires. That means I got to sell the machine for $2,100, which really means I'm going to have to list it for $2,500 for somebody to come along and kind of talk me down to $2,100, $2,000. Okay, so you see what I did there? Because if I'm putting tires on it, I'm just turning around and selling the tires. I'm not benefiting anything. I'm just kind of washing. Now, I take that with a little grain of salt. The benefit is it'll look better, it may sell better, and it may bring in a better customer because it's going to look better. Does that make any sense? The more something costs, the less riffraff you're going to deal with. Okay, you got something out there for $500, you're going to get every individual out there under the sun contacting you at 2 in the morning because they got $500 blow a hole in their pocket. You got something out there for $2,500, well, all of a sudden the riffraff isn't going to bother you because they don't have $2,500. So keep that in mind too. Margins, clientele, your customer base, how fast do you want to sell stuff? How often do you go to Marketplace and see the same piece of equipment, whatever it is, lawnmower, tractor, go-kart, whatever, and they're asking a ton of money for it, and it just sits there month after month after month after month, and they never vary off that price, and they just sit there and they just wait. That's the long game. They may sell it. It may take them a year. I know there's a mini bike for sale right now for $4,000. It's been on there almost 10 months. Now, maybe that's what they cost. I'm not willing to give that, but apparently neither is anybody else. Guy comes off his price a little bit, he'll probably move it. He must not want to sell it. That's the I don't really want to sell it price. Well, that's not what we're going to do here. We want to sell this thing. And honestly, if we get $1,500 for it, we've got $500 invested in it and a couple hours of our time. What a windfall. I mean, that's just amazing that we took a chance on ourselves, because I know a lot of y'all are probably going, well, he underpaid. I paid what the guy was willing to take for it. It's the end of that story. He said it had a busted transmission. He said that it needed a complete transmission rebuild. I showed you the post. Those are his words. Now, did it? It didn't. But that doesn't mean I didn't take the same risk as if it did. If I'd have came home and it needed a transmission and he was right, where would we be? We'd have a $500 paperweight. Because a transmission on one of these things is not cheap. You'd end up having to buy a whole nother machine, probably to get the parts you need out of it to fix this one. And honestly, I wouldn't probably even fix it. I would just sell it as non-running because I don't want to mess with transmissions. It's just kind of a thing for me. You know, we all have the things we like to do and things we don't like to do. Transmissions is something I don't want to deal with. Clutches, that's different. I'm talking about synchronizers and shift forks and bearings, and I don't want to deal with any of that. Bushings and no, not me. I'm not your guy. So I'm just going to put this on some time lapse. We're going to detail this thing up, and then we're probably going to take some pictures of it, and I'm going to get it ready to go out on the market. And like I said, I'm going to shoot for $1,800. That's really what I want to put on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to list it for $2,000 and take 18. If I have to, take 15. But I don't want to sit on it for more than a couple of weeks. I want to keep my money turning. I saw a meme the other day, or a reel, or a post, or whatever, short, whatever you want to call it. It was about banking, and I know that has nothing to do really with three-wheelers and stuff, but it kind of does. Is that a bank will actually take your deposit and keep 10% of it, and they reinvest 90% of it. And I think the message that I kind of want to share with y'all is banks don't put money in the bank and just let it sit there. They use their money, and they're constantly flipping their money, making money with your money. So instead of, in this case, putting the money in the bank, we invested in ourselves, and we put the money in a four-wheeler. And now we're going to turn around and we're going to gain money back. We're going to profit from that investment. And that's exactly what a bank does. A bank takes that money and they reinvest it, and they make money off of their money. Banks do not put money in the bank and just let it sit there at 3% interest. They're always turning the money, and that's what I'm always doing here. I'll take the $500 that we paid for that, and I'll put it back in my pocket. And whatever the profit ends up being on this is going to go back to my household, or maybe into another keep three-wheeler. But that money goes forward. But I always keep my seed money. If you know what that term is, it's always the money that you keep back. It's whatever you invest. And so it's a long way to explain how banking kind of works, and how you should think of your own money is let your money work for you. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. That's what people do when they buy stocks. That's what people do when they buy real estate. It would take you over 20 years or better to make $1,500 on a $500 stuck in the bank. And that's what we were all taught. We were all taught to put money in the bank and, save for a rainy day. And that is important. But you also need to find ways to let your money work for you. Be a smart shopper. Do your homework. Know what you're buying before you buy it. Know what it's worth before you buy it in running condition. Know what parts cost and what your skill level are. These are things that you really do. If you want to be successful, you've got to know these things going in. People that do this for a living don't just luck into it. It's not just luck. They know what they're doing. There it is. Honda Rancher 2002 350 TW. I have no idea what that stands for. Somebody will tell me in the comments. So whoever that person is, thank you. I appreciate that. Now we'll all know what TW stands for. Two-wheel drive, maybe? That would be my guess. Two-wheel drive. I have no idea. Don't anybody repeat that. That's probably not right. Unless it's right, and then I want all the credit. MRC Build said that. There you go. Thank you. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. And next time you see this will be on Marketplace. See ya.